The glittering success of Logan Creations was supposed to be a triumphant new chapter for Katie Logan Spencer. After enduring the agonizing fallout with her sister Brooke Logan Forrester, who officially disowned her and shattered the Logan sisterhood forever, Katie had poured every ounce of her soul into building a fashion empire that could rival Forrester Creations. The launch of the Hope by Logan line was a spectacular victory, a runway triumph that completely eclipsed Eric Forrester's highly anticipated return to haute couture. The media frenzy was deafening, the advance orders were pouring in, and Katie finally felt that she had stepped out of the shadows to claim her rightful place as a titan of the fashion industry. She believed that she and Bill Spencer were an unstoppable power couple, united in love and ambition, ready to conquer the world together. However, beneath the champagne toasts and the flashing cameras, a dark and insidious betrayal was already taking root, proving that in the Spencer family, ambition always demands a devastating price. Bill Spencer, the ruthless patriarch known to the world as Dollar Bill, watched the meteoric rise of Logan Creations. Not with the tender pride of a supportive partner, but with the cold, calculating gaze of an apex predator. The massive success of the fashion house had awakened his most primal corporate instincts. To Bill, the company was no longer just Katie's passion project or a tool to irritate Ridge Forrester. It was a highly lucrative asset, a weapon of mass destruction in the ongoing war against the Forrester family. As the profits soared and the brand's influence expanded, Bill's pragmatic, ruthless nature began to eclipse whatever romantic loyalty he harbored for Katie. He began to view her leadership not as an asset, but as a glaring vulnerability. In the unforgiving arena of global business, Bill believed that compassion and emotional attachments were fatal flaws, and unfortunately for Katie, she possessed both in abundance. In the quiet solitude of his executive office at Spencer Publications, Bill analyzed Katie's recent behavior with chilling detachment. He saw how deeply she had been affected by the violent fallout involving their son, Will Spencer. Will's drunken spiral, his horrific physical assault on R.J. Forrester, and the accidental punch that left Eric Forrester battered had sent Katie into a tailspin of guilt and terror. She had rushed to the Forrester mansion, desperately begging for forgiveness and attempting to broker a peace treaty. To Bill, this was an unforgivable display of weakness. He despised her emotional fragility and her persistent, desperate need to seek validation from a family that had constantly looked down on her. Bill was convinced that Katie was far too emotional to run a cutthroat empire, believing that she would eventually fold under pressure or, worse, allow herself to be manipulated by Brooke's inevitable attempts to reclaim control over the Logan legacy. Driven by this ruthless assessment, Bill formulated a Machiavellian plan to sideline Katie and install Will as the ultimate authority at Logan Creations. The decision was twisted by a dark sense of paternal duty. Will was currently a broken young man, drowning in guilt, depression, and alcohol after losing Elektra, Forrester, and facing the severe legal and public consequences of his violent actions at the bikini bar. Bill believed that the only way to save his son from this downward spiral was to hand him the keys to the kingdom. In Bill's mind, placing Will on the throne of Logan Creations would force the boy to harden his heart, channel his aggression into corporate dominance, and transform him into the ruthless Spencer heir he was always meant to be. Bill did not care that this meant usurping the woman he claimed to love. To him, it was a necessary sacrifice for the survival and supremacy of the Spencer dynasty. While Bill orchestrated his silent coup in the boardroom, Hope Logan Spencer was fighting her own psychological battles within the walls of the design studio. The initial euphoria of her defection had begun to wear off, replaced by a suffocating sense of dread. Hope had left Forrester Creations because she was tired of being controlled by Steffy Forrester Finnegan and Ridge Forrester. She had signed the life-changing contract with Katie, believing she was finally gaining true creative autonomy and the respect she deserved. The spectacular debut of her collection, featuring the breathtaking designs of Deke Sharp, had validated her talent to the world. Yet, as the dust settled, Hope realized with horrifying clarity that she had merely traded one gilded cage for another. The atmosphere at Logan Creations was becoming increasingly toxic, poisoned by the looming shadow of Dollar Bill Spencer. Hope felt entirely caught in the middle of a vicious power struggle between her in-laws. She noticed the subtle shifts in the company's direction, the aggressive marketing strategies that prioritized attacking Forrester Creations over celebrating the art of fashion. Bill was constantly hovering, his overbearing presence dictating the narrative of the Hope by Logan brand. Hope began to understand the agonizing truth. She was not an independent creator in Bill's eyes. She was merely a highly effective tool, a shiny weapon he was using to humiliate Ridge and destroy Eric's legacy. The realization that her personal vision was being hijacked to fuel a bitter blood feud left Hope feeling hollow and used. She had alienated her mother, shattered her relationship with Brooke, and caused a massive family war, all to become a pawn on Bill Spencer's chessboard. The psychological toll on Hope was immense. She had already suffered a severe panic attack and collapsed unconscious on the floor of the Logan Gallery due to the trauma of Brooke's disownment. Now, she was forced to plaster on a brave face for the media while internally suffocating under the weight of Bill's ruthless expectations. Every time she tried to advocate for a more compassionate approach or a design choice that didn't directly mock Forrester Creations, she was swiftly overruled by Bill's aggressive mandates. Hope felt entirely isolated, trapped in a corporate war zone where her artistic integrity was constantly being sacrificed on the altar of Spencer ambition. She desperately needed an ally, someone who could see through the glittering facade of Logan Creations and recognize the darkness festering within. That ally came in the form of her husband, Liam Spencer. Liam had always been fiercely protective of Hope, and his instincts were screaming that something was fundamentally wrong with the dynamic at Logan Creations. He had fully supported Hope's move, believing it was the best way for her to escape Steffy's tyranny. But he had never anticipated his father taking such an aggressive, controlling interest in the day-to-day operations of a fashion house. Liam knew his father's playbook better than anyone. He recognized the signs of a hostile takeover, the subtle manipulation of assets, and the calculated isolation of the target. Driven by a need to protect his wife and his lingering suspicions about Bill's true motives, Liam decided to launch his own quiet investigation into the financial structure of Logan Creations. Utilizing his high-level access at Spencer Publications, Liam began digging through the labyrinth of corporate accounts, offshore holdings, and recent financial transactions. What he discovered sent a chill down his spine and shattered any remaining illusions he had about his father's capacity for loyalty. Liam uncovered a complex web of shell companies and proxy buyers, all secretly funded by Bill Spencer. Over the past several weeks, while Katie was distracted by the media frenzy and the chaotic fallout of Will's violent actions, Bill had been quietly and aggressively purchasing every available share of Logan Creations from minority investors. He was systematically consolidating power, maneuvering the board of directors, and positioning himself to execute a ruthless corporate coup that would completely strip Katie of her controlling interest in the company she had built from nothing. The discovery left Liam physically nauseated. He stared at the glowing computer screen, the undeniable proof of his father's treachery staring back at him. Bill was not just trying to influence the company. He was orchestrating a hostile takeover to violently rip Logan Creations out of Katie's hands. Liam understood immediately why Bill was doing this. He knew his father viewed Katie's emotional nature as a liability, and that Bill was desperate to install Will as the head of the empire to cure the boy's depression. But the sheer cruelty of the betrayal was staggering. Katie had sacrificed her relationship with her sisters, endured Brooke's vicious verbal assaults, and faced the wrath of the entire Forrester family, all because she believed Bill was her ultimate protector and partner. To realize that the man she loved was the one holding the dagger to her back was a tragedy Liam could barely comprehend. Liam faced an agonizing moral dilemma. Exposing Bill's plot would ignite a catastrophic civil war within the Spencer family, potentially destroying his relationship with his father forever. It would also throw Logan Creations into absolute chaos, jeopardizing Hope's new line and everything she had worked so hard to achieve. However, remaining silent meant becoming complicit in Katie's destruction. Liam knew the pain of being manipulated by Dollar Bill, the suffocating grip of his father's control. He could not stand by and watch Katie be blindsided and discarded like a broken toy. Gathering the financial documents, Liam made the heavy, fateful decision to confront Katie with the horrifying truth, knowing that the revelation would irrevocably alter the landscape of their lives. Liam found Katie in her executive office at Logan Creations, surrounded by the physical manifestations of her success. Fabric swatches, marketing mock-ups, and glowing press clippings covered her desk. She greeted him with a tired but triumphant smile, completely unaware of the impending devastation. The atmosphere in the room was thick with the scent of expensive perfume and the electric hum of a booming business. Liam's heart ached as he looked at her, seeing the pride and exhaustion etched into her features. He asked her to sit down, his voice trembling with a mixture of sorrow and barely contained rage. Slowly, methodically, Liam laid out the financial documents on her desk, walking her through the intricate, undeniable trail of shell companies and proxy acquisitions that led directly back to Bill Spencer. At first, Katie's mind simply refused to process the information. She stared at the papers, her eyes darting across the numbers and signatures, desperately searching for an alternative explanation. She shook her head, a nervous, disbelieving laugh escaping her lips as she tried to rationalize the data. She insisted that there must be a mistake, that Bill was simply securing their investments, that he would never do something so cold and calculating to her after everything they had survived together. But Liam gently, firmly guided her through the evidence, dismantling her denial piece by piece. He explained Bill's true motives, his desire to sideline her because he viewed her as too emotional, and his twisted plan to place Will in charge to harden the boy against the world. As the horrifying reality finally settled in, Katie's initial denial morphed into a soul-crushing devastation. The color drained from her face, and her hands began to shake violently. The walls of her beautiful, successful office suddenly felt like a prison cell closing in around her. The betrayal cut deeper than any wound she had ever suffered. It was far more agonizing than Brooke's vicious disownment or Eric's cold rejection. She had given up her family, her peace of mind, and her sisterhood for this company and for the man she believed loved her unconditionally. To realize that Bill was exploiting her vulnerability, using her hard work to build a throne for Will while simultaneously plotting her demise, was a psychological blow that left her gasping for air. The tears that streamed down her face were not just of sorrow, but of a profound, agonizing humiliation. However, Katie Logan was not a woman who stayed broken for long. The crushing sorrow quickly ignited into a blazing, uncontrollable fury. She wiped the tears from her cheeks, her eyes hardening into shards of ice. The emotional, compassionate woman that Bill despised was entirely consumed by a fierce, protective wrath. She realized that she had been playing a dangerous game with a man who knew no loyalty, a man who worshipped only at the altar of power and control. She refused to be a victim, refused to let Bill Spencer steal the legacy she had built with her own blood, sweat, and tears. With the financial documents clutched tightly in her hands, Katie stormed out of the Logan Creations building, her destination clear. She was heading to the Spencer mansion, ready to confront the devil himself in a battle that would determine the fate of her company and her soul. The confrontation at the Spencer mansion was nothing short of explosive. The sprawling estate, usually a symbol of their united power, felt like a gladiator's arena as Katie kicked the double doors open. Bill was standing by the grand fireplace, a glass of scotch in his hand, looking every bit the untouchable titan of industry. Katie did not hesitate. She threw the stack of financial documents directly at his chest, the papers scattering across the expensive rug like fallen leaves. Her voice echoed through the cavernous room, trembling with a mixture of rage and heartbreak as she accused him of the ultimate betrayal. She demanded to know how he could look her in the eye, share her bed, and celebrate her victories while secretly plotting to slit her throat in the boardroom. She laid bare her sacrifices, screaming that she had lost her sister and her family for him, only for him to treat her like a disposable asset. Bill Spencer did not flinch. He did not offer apologies or attempt to deny the allegations. Instead, he met Katie's fiery gaze with a chilling, cold rationalization. He placed his drink on the mantelpiece and stepped toward her, his presence dominating and unapologetic. Bill calmly explained that his actions were not born of malice, but of necessity. He brutally told Katie that she was indeed too emotional, too easily swayed by the ghosts of the Logan family, and too fragile to wage the kind of ruthless war required to obliterate Forrester creations. He justified his betrayal by claiming it was for the greater good of the Spencer legacy. He insisted that Will needed this empire to survive his current downward spiral, to learn how to be a predator instead of prey. Bill's voice was devoid of warmth, completely replacing love with cold, unyielding ambition. He looked at the woman he claimed to cherish and told her that in the world of Dollar Bill Spencer, business always trumps emotion. The chilling moment hung in the air, a devastating silence that marked the death of their romance. Katie looked into Bill's eyes and saw nothing but a void of power and greed. She realized that the man she loved was entirely consumed by his own ambition, incapable of genuine partnership. The confrontation ended not with a resolution, but with a declaration of war. Katie vowed that she would not go quietly, that she would fight him for every single share, every single design, and every single ounce of control over Logan Creations. The aftermath of the explosive fight left the Spencer family deeply fractured. Liam was caught in the crossfire, Hope felt more used and isolated than ever, and Will remained oblivious to the fact that his father was destroying his mother to build him a throne. The stage is now set for a brutal, unforgiving civil war within Logan Creations, a tragic irony where Katie's desperate ambition to escape her sister's shadow has led her directly into the jaws of a monster.